Good morning and welcome to an extra video I am putting on to clarify some errors I may have made in my previous video, which you'd have seen on Sunday night, the Edith Thompson video. Now during that video I made two kind of, well, not errors, but I made a miscalculation on one, and the other one, due to further research, I've figured out why this is the case. I'm literally stood, if you look behind me, you'll see Edith Thompson's grave, literally right there. So I'm back at the City of London Cemetery. Now the first thing I said was that on Find a Grave, they got it wrong about the grave number. I followed the grave number for Percy Thompson's grave and it led me to Edith Thompson's grave by mistake. Now this isn't necessarily so, because initially Percy Thompson was actually buried in this grave. After he was murdered and he had his post-mortem done, he was buried in this grave, and this was purchased by Edith Thompson. Now, during the investigation of Edith Thompson, where they discovered the love letters, they discovered passages in those letters which stated that she had tried herself to murder Percy by ingesting broken glass in his food, and also through other poisoning methods. Now he was exhumed, and they did a second post-mortem on him. And in a minute, when I'm walking, because I will be walking from here to Percy Thompson's new grave, which I've actually found now, and when I'm walking down the road, you'll actually see a chapel in front of me. That is a chapel where he had his second post-mortem done. He was never actually removed from this cemetery. Now, the grave number on Edith Thompson's grave was originally Percy Thompson's grave number, though it's still even though on Find a Grave they have a photograph of his new final resting place, the grave number is totally different. So on Find a Grave they have actually got the square number and the grave number wrong. It is, as I said, it will lead you to Edith Thompson's grave. Now what I'm going to do in a minute is I'm going to spin you around and I'm going to tell you a little bit about Percy. I'm not going to go into the murder, the trial, all that sort of thing, because that's already been covered in my previous video. But what I will do is I will show you where Percy was laid to rest and is still to this day. Now the second error, well, I'll say error, the second thing I said on that video was that I believed that she should have been executed, not because she was guilty of murder, but because she was guilty of attempted murder on at least 3 separate occasions. Now, when Percy was taken out of this particular grave and he went for his second post-mortem, the reason for that was because the police discovered in those letters where she said that she had tried to poison him and tried to smash glass or grind up glass and put it in his food as a way of killing him. Now, on that second post-mortem, there was absolutely no evidence at all of poisoning, either very recently or in the past, and there was not a single trace of any broken glass found within his system. So the belief is that Edith Thompson wasn't being honest about trying to poison her husband. So in that respect, I actually take back my opinion, and I now believe 100% that Edith Thompson was innocent on all charges, and there is no way she should have been executed. But anyway, what I'm going to do now, as I said, I'm going to spin you around and I'm going to walk you from here, which is Edith's grave, which is literally right here behind me, and we're going to go directly from here to Percy Thompson's grave, and he's buried around about 150 yards away.
Percy Thompson was born on 10th of April 1890. He lived in Commercial Road in Stepney, London, with his mother, Margaret, and his two older sisters, Margaret and Eliza. By 1901, the family had moved to Charles Street in Stepney, and Percy also had a younger brother, Richard. By the time he was 21, he had landed a job as a shipping clerk, and the family had again moved home. They were now living on Clements Road in East Ham, which at that time was in Essex, but now is classed as Greater London. On 10th of December 1915, Percy enlisted in the 14th London Regiment. Unfortunately, he wasn't a very good soldier due to health problems, which is summed up in the report made out by the officer in charge of his basic training. It read, "He was subject to fainting fits. He always had palpitations after slight exertion, also frequent attacks of giddiness. Has never been able to go through physical drill, can't march, has to pull out after 3 miles." On the 15th of January 1916, Percy married Edith Jessie Grayson. 6 months later, on the 3rd of July 1916, he was discharged from the army as medically unfit and was awarded the Silver War Badge number 97297. Percy went back to the job he had before joining up, which was a shipbroker's clerk. If you have watched my previous video, you will have heard all about the run-up to the murder and the murder itself, so I don't need to repeat that in this video. Immediately after the murder, a Mr. John Webber, who was a sales manager of De Vere Gardens, Ilford, said he heard a woman scream, "Don't do it." He went outside and found Percy Thompson laying on the pavement. A Dr. Maudsley said he was called up by a Miss Pittard. When he arrived, he found Percy laying on the pavement. He examined him by the light of a match and found he had been dead for approximately 10 minutes. Edith Thompson, who was standing beside him, was confused, hysterical and agitated. When told that her husband was dead, she said, "Why didn't you come sooner and save him?" Dr. P.J. Draft, who was the police surgeon, said he thought Percy's assailant must have been at his back when the blows were struck, severing the artery. The wounded man travelled 44 feet before he fell. After this, Percy was buried in a grave in the City of London cemetery, which had previously been paid for by his wife Edith. But he couldn't rest in peace just yet, as his remains had to be exhumed after new evidence had been discovered. They needed a second post-mortem, specifically looking for traces of poison and signs of glass in the stomach. Sir Bernard Spilsbury performed a second post-mortem at 11 AM on Friday the 3rd of November 1922. He wrote, "There were 3 stab wounds on the body, each a clean-cut wound having a surface measurement of 1 to 2 inches. One wound was situated on the right side of the neck, a short distance below and behind the angle of the jaw. It passed upwards and inwards and penetrated into the floor of the mouth. The third wound was situated on the right side of the neck, a short distance below and in front of the second wound. It passed directly inwards as far as the esophagus, in which there was a long cut. The right common carotid artery was opened in this wound. The cause of death was heart failure due to loss of blood from the 3 stab wounds to the neck. The principal wound being the one which opened the carotid artery. I found no indications of poisoning and no changes suggestive of previous attempts of poisoning. I detected no glass in the contents of the intestine." After the post-mortem was completed, Percy Thompson was again laid to rest, but not in his previous grave. The family did not want him buried in a grave which had been paid for by Edith, so they paid for a new grave where Percy was finally laid to rest and has since been joined by his brother and sister. It is approximately 150 yards away from where Edith is currently at rest with her parents in the City of London cemetery, which is where we are today.
Well, we've arrived at the line where Percy's final resting place is. So what I'll do again now is I'll spin you around and we're going to have a look together. Let's see, it's just down here. I was literally so close last time I was here on my search for him. But it doesn't look the same as the pictures because it's so clean. But this one here is the final resting place of Percy Thompson, his brother and his sister. Sacred to the memory of our dear brother Percy Thompson, who died suddenly on October the 4th, 1922, aged 32 years. For him peace at last, also to the precious memory of my dear husband, Richard Halliday Thompson, who died on December the 29th, 1951, aged 58 years, cremated at Charing, Kent, and whose ashes are interred here. Sleep on, beloved. And around here, also in affectionate remembrance of our sister Lily A. Chambers, who passed away on January the 9th, 1947, and was cremated. And at the very end here, R.H. Thompson, who was Percy's father. But that is the final resting place of Percy Thompson. Well, that was the final resting place of Percy Thompson. Now, I'm glad I actually finally managed to find his grave, and with the further research, I actually clarified that one, Edith, in my opinion, wasn't guilty. I'm not even sure she should have been given any prison time at all. I think she should have been freed to live the rest of her life. And the grave number, it was originally Percy's, but when he was exhumed for that second post-mortem, where they wanted to check out the to see if there's any broken glass in his system or any poison, his family refused to have him put back in the grave that Edith had paid, so they purchased another one and had him laid to rest here. But anyway, I hope you did enjoy this video, and I hope it did clarify a few things, a few mistakes I might have made. And if you like the content, then maybe consider subscribing. And if you do subscribe, don't forget to hit that notification bell. That way you will be notified every time I upload a new video. And also, if you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. It does help the channel. Well, thank you all again so very much for watching. I'll see you again on the next one. Bye bye for now.